Good afternoon, everyone. This is Superintendent Nancy Elbron. I want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. I know families have very busy schedules, and so I really appreciate the time that you are setting aside to engage with us regarding this information. I hope everyone is doing well, staying safe and healthy, and continuing to help our community curtail the spread of this terrible disease. And I also want to thank you for your patience and your flexibility and adaptability given the changing environment that we're operating in. We recognize how hard this is, particularly in education, where here we normally have a very rule-based system and it's all outlined in the education code and on a day-to-day regulated by a bell schedule. I know as a family, we rely on the kids' bell schedule and their weekly schedule. It brings a level of normalcy to our lives that I couldn't appreciate more. And I know that things have been challenging, but everybody that's with me today here, members of the senior team, we are, in addition to being parents, also teachers and educators prior to moving into leadership, and have had a lot of training, but also that training in this situation didn't prevent us from feeling like many of you did. And I just want to share how much we empathize with how challenging this was for parents and for students. I know as a mom, despite my teaching credential, I had instances where I was very frustrated with a particular piece of content that my child was not mastering or not being able to help in some instances. And then there were moments of elation where I got to see my child have mastery of some concepts that I didn't know he was capable of doing at that age. So again, we're really thankful for everything that you've done and for your patience, and we're happy to report that as of Monday and yesterday, Tuesday, we have more specific guidance both from the state and from the county public health office. On Monday, the governor and legislature agreed on a budget, and that budget language is providing direction for us on how to move forward with opening schools in the fall. Yesterday at 3:30, the Santa Clara County Public Health Department, in collaboration with the Santa Clara County Office of Education, released the guidance for safely reopening schools in our county. And so those two pieces of information are really helpful for us as we begin to really finalize our plans for opening school on August 12th. So this afternoon for our agenda, I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Superintendent Stephen McMahon, who will be walking us through a couple of pieces of information regarding these two documents that we received information on, a little bit about our reopening plan, and the bulk of the time will be spent on questions and responses. I do want to preface that part of the meeting with an apology in advance, as there will be some questions that we won't have responses to. There will be questions, and a lot of them that we do know today, but given that we just received this guidance Monday and Tuesday, we're working quickly to really interpret it and use it to guide the work that will happen over the next 5 weeks. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Superintendent McMahon.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us. We're going to go through the highlights, so we do reserve the bulk of the time for your questions. One of the most important things San Jose Unified was waiting for was the adoption of the California state budget. California spends more money on public education than any other aspect of the budget. So public education and the rules for the system are very important. On Monday, the state finalized the budget. The summary statement is this new section of Education Code. A local educational agency, that's San Jose Unified, that's any school district, shall offer in-person instruction to the greatest extent possible. So the state of California, which funds the public school system, adopted language that says we shall offer in-person instruction. California wants its schools open. They want the instruction to be in person. Underneath this sits a lot of details, like 180 school days are still required. There's a minimum number of minutes for each one of those school days. and those instructional minutes need to be provided by a teacher. On the parent side, attendance is compulsory. So there's a section in the new law that says compulsory attendance requirements are not waived for the 2020-2021 school year. So we want to emphasize the importance of the state budget. Local educational agency is a school district, is a county office. There are over 1,000 of them in California. All 1,000 school districts have been told you shall offer in-person instruction to the greatest extent possible. It's in the law. It's California's public education system. We deliver it day to day, but in the confines of that law. We can offer at-home instruction, and the state adopted language on that. When you offer at-home instruction, it needs to be consistent with health guidance or individual medical needs of students. So I'll get to our model design in a couple minutes, but everyone on this call should understand the San Jose Unified School District implements California's public education system. The state just finalized the laws on Monday. In person, for 180 days, minimum number of minutes per day with a teacher each day. So other school districts had shared models that they now have to redo to comply with the state law. Locally, we got the county health guidance for schools yesterday. It was released to us yesterday afternoon. It was available on the website shortly thereafter. It specifies how to reopen schools as safely as possible. So the state of California on Monday says, we're funding schools, they need to reopen. On Tuesday, county health says, here's how you reopen safely. No one is calling for the continued closure of schools. So we need to start there, that schools need to reopen. The county health guidance was much less precise than many of us anticipated. There is no cap on group size at any grade level. Right now, childcare and summer programs are limited to 12. When we get to the fall, county health is saying schools can open without any restrictions on the size. For elementary schools, they will want the groups to be as stable as possible. So one class with a teacher, keep it stable. Knowing that is not possible at the middle and the high school levels, the expectation is face masks and social distancing. So at elementary, stable group, at middle and high, face masks and social distancing. Under any plan, school is going to look completely different in the fall. Nothing in our world is going to be normal while we're dealing with this pandemic. Schools are going to be far from normal in the fall. We encourage you to go to the County of Santa Clara Department of Public Health website. You can download the guidance for school health. It walks through the things the school district will need to do to safely open. We will adhere and implement all of those things. There is not a requirement on group size. So school districts that had a model saying no more than 12 kids can come to school, no more than 15 can come to school, that is not consistent with the state of California's budget, which says shall offer in person to the greatest extent possible. And it's no longer consistent with county health guidelines that now have no restrictions on group size for schools. We understand that many families do not want to send their students back to school in the fall. So we try to create a model that allows for that flexibility. Offer daily instruction, have that daily instruction be accessible for students who stay at home. So in short, our model allows us to flex between the two environments. We build our course schedules, we assign our teachers to their students, we add the technology to all of our teachers so that they can take their instruction live. So if a student needs to be home, they can access the content at home. So we want to make sure that if a student needs to be at home, they don't lose their classmates, they don't lose their teacher. When we closed in the spring, we had to pivot very quickly. Now that we know we're preparing for the fall, we want to make sure to the greatest extent possible we can continue daily instruction with our students, with their teacher. One of the challenges of building a different model was we know that the students are going to change in their ability to attend school or stay at home pretty frequently. So if a student is exposed to the virus, they may have no symptoms, they may even test negative for COVID-19, but still have to stay at home for 14 days. We don't want students who have to stay at home for 14 days to lose their teacher, lose their classmates, and lose instruction. So we're trying to keep a model where, regardless of the individual student's needs at the time, they still get a classroom teacher, they still get their school experience. So maximum flexibility for our families while providing the best instruction possible. And I do want to say before we go to the next slide, we're asking our teachers to do an incredible change. Our teachers have lots of years of experience of managing the in-classroom environment to keep a diverse student population working together. Learning how to do that, where some of the students are in person and some of the students are at home, is going to be the biggest challenge teachers probably face in their entire career. Managing two learning environments simultaneously and through an online portal, we're going to need everyone's patience and support. School is not going to be the same in the fall. Instruction is not going to be the same in the fall. We're going to have to support our teachers. We're going to have to be patient. Everyone is committed to providing the best instructional environment possible, but it's not going to be what we want, and it's definitely not going to be normal. So what does all of this mean for parents? Our schools will be open in the fall. The state of California has made it clear that unless county health closes schools, we need to provide the school experience each school day. County health told us yesterday that they are removing any restrictions on group sizes so our schools can fully open. The state of California has also said attendance will be mandatory. Attendance means participating in the school experience. If it's done at home, that counts. If it's done in person, that counts. As parents, you need to know your students need to go to school. Go to school online or go to school in person. They need to go to school each time there's a school day, or they'll be marked absent. The state budget says compulsory attendance is not waived for the 2020-2021 school year. So if a student is not online, if a student is not in person, they'll be marked absent, and we'll have to work with families to get their students back to participating. Parents should know that we'll provide daily learning with a teacher. Whether that daily learning is in person or at home, that's our commitment, that every school day, there's a learning experience for every student. And then that there's flexibility for family circumstances. There are a variety of reasons why a student may need to stay at home. We're going to respect those circumstances. If parents choose to keep their student home, we'll be able to accommodate that. The student will just need to participate in their class online. So parents will not have the flexibility to not participate in school. They will have the flexibility to participate in person or participate at home. What we will be asking families to do is not change their commitment on a daily or weekly basis. To keep groups stable, we can't have students come to school on Monday, stay at home on Tuesday, come back on Wednesday, stay at home on Thursday. To the greatest extent possible, if you go forward with coming to school, I want you to come to school consistently. If a family wants to have their students stay at home consistently, participate online. What will change on a daily basis is the spread of the virus and the exposure of the virus. So if a student is exposed, as I mentioned earlier, they may need to self-isolate for 2 weeks. We want them to not lose their connection with their class, with their teacher, but they'd be welcome back in person after the self-isolation. We're going to be looking at ways for families, if they want to stay home from the first day of school on and has nothing to do with the virus or exposure, that they make that choice and stay with it as much as they can. So we're going to go to questions. We already have hundreds of questions in the chat box, so we're going to try to group them. We already have someone grouping them by themes. So to answer as many questions as possible, we'll answer the theme of the question. As we've said on earlier calls, we'll respond with the information we have, which is sometimes less than an answer, because we don't have all of the details finalized. We'll acknowledge the question, let you know we're working on it, but we don't always have an answer, and we'll take as many questions as possible. In consideration for the many parents on this call, some of you have already asked a dozen questions. Let's try to get through the first slate of questions before people ask additional questions. So let's try to give everyone space to get some questions in there, and we'll go as fast as we can. So first theme is around PE and other specialty classes. The state of California in the budget waived PE requirements for next school year. So there's no PE requirements at elementary, no PE requirements at secondary. Simultaneously, we're committed to all of our employees, and the state of California is allowing no layoffs. So all of our PE teachers will be back. We're going to be working with our PE teachers on how can they provide physical education that's not the normal PE class. So we're not going to be doing group activities, group sports, but our PE staff will be back with us. We'll do the best we can to support physical education. The requirement from the state has been waived. Similarly, classes like choir, band, the county health guidelines talk about classes that produce aerosols, particulate matter in the air. The choir cannot come together and sing as a group. So our choir classes, our band classes, anywhere where there's a lot of aerosols produced and you can't wear a mask, we're going to have to change what that instruction looks like. So again, we're going to need to support our teachers, support our students to make sure we can provide those experiences in a different way that is still meaningful. Related to that is graduation requirements. We will do the same thing we did in the spring and adjust our graduation requirements so that students are not prohibited from graduating on schedule with changing circumstances. So community service is an easy example. The community service requirements will likely change because we can't expect students to go out in the community and do the same volunteer hours. For PE, we'll have to work grade level by grade level and see where students are at with their PE credits and how we're able to offer the equivalent of PE without it being sports in person to see what we can do to satisfy those credits. So the commitment we can make now is that no student will be prohibited from graduating on schedule if we weren't able to offer the graduation requirement. The details of PE over the course of a student's 4 years will still have to work out because the situation keeps changing. Can parents choose at home or in person? We're offering that flexibility. The only restriction is going to be the choice can't change daily or weekly. If a health condition causes a student to be absent, but they had been attending in person, we'll welcome them back. If a family chooses at home, we can't have that answer change because it stops the groups from being stable. Social distancing. The school systems are a reflection of society. Social distancing and face masks are an expectation for all of us. We will do that in the school systems as well. Everyone acknowledges the challenges of doing that, especially for elementary students. We can't expect kindergartners to not interact with each other for a full school day. At the high school level, our students are more mature and more self-responsible. we can't expect them to socially distance. In the classroom setting, the guidelines talk about wearing the mask when you can't socially distance. So if you can't be 6 feet apart, you need to wear your mask. An additional guidance document that is important to our planning is the American Association of Pediatricians just released their guidance, which says students coming back to school is more important than other considerations. So pediatricians are also saying, for a variety of reasons, students need to get back to school. Specific to social distancing, we're not going to be able to mandate it at all times. There are going to be situations where social distancing is impossible. That's why face masks are so important. And we will be working with our students to give them best practice training on why do you wear a face mask. It's to protect others. We're not wearing face masks to stop getting the virus. We're wearing face masks to stop spreading the virus. So we need our students to understand that when they wear a face mask, they're protecting others. Regarding positive tests, the county health guidelines have scenarios and how you respond to those scenarios, whether you're just exposed and test negative, whether you're exposed and test positive, if you have symptoms, how we isolate you and send you home. We'll implement all of those. So right now, if you test positive, you need to stay at home in quarantine. There's a number of days you need to be symptom-free for before you can come back. If you have symptoms, whether you test positive or not, self-isolation for 14 days is going to be the standard. That's why we want a model that allows students to continue with their class and their teacher. Because even a student who doesn't test positive may need to stay at home for 14 days because they were exposed. Learning platforms, we are working at the county level on a platform that will support instruction at home and instruction at school. Final decision hasn't been made yet. We do want to limit the number of new tools we provide in any given school year. If we buy 6 different learning platforms and try to train our teachers and our families on how to access them, it's overwhelming. We want to do fewer things better. So we don't want to replace the tools we already have. If we do add a tool, it'll be one that helps integrate attendance, collecting and assigning assignments. Something that integrates them is what we're looking for, and the county is working with us to do that for all Santa Clara County schools. If the county order changes to limit class size, we'll use the existing factors for determining who can come to school and who can't. So students with special needs are going to have a priority. That priority has existed in California's school system for a long time. More recently, but for several years now, the focus on English learners, foster youth, homeless youth, and low-income students has been in the law for years. If we have to make a decision to allow in-person to only some students, we'll start with the criteria that we already use to provide supplemental supports. If that allows for more seats, we'll look at other criteria like childcare, are you an essential worker? At this time, though, there is no limit. So at this time, County Health has told all of the school districts in Santa Clara County there is no health restrictions on the number of students who can come to school. And we do have to follow the guidance of the health department. So another way to put that is the state of California has passed laws requiring the schools to open. County Health has provided guidance saying there's no restrictions on the number of seats. San Jose Unified School District can't tell some families no. The only way we could tell families no is if County Health restricts the number. As of yesterday, there are no restrictions on the number. We don't have the legal authority to tell some of our families you can't come back to school. If there's a health reason, virus exposure, COVID-19 test, then we can have families stay at home for short periods of time based on the county guidelines. What we're trying to do is offer parents the flexibility to keep the students home on their own. But as a school district, we can't pick and choose which families to say no to. Families will have to make that choice based on their individual family circumstances. Regarding devices and support, we've already placed orders to make sure we have a device for every student. As long as our suppliers come through with their commitments, we will have an iPad or a Chromebook for every student in San Jose Unified by the first day of school. We know we can't offer this instructional model without every student having their own device. So each student will have their own device, absent a supply chain interruption. The orders are in, the deliveries are scheduled. We should have a device for every student by the time school opens. Extracurriculars, County Health has said they're going to add guidelines for schools regarding sports and other activities in the next couple of weeks. The guidance from yesterday was specific to the instructional part of the school day. The guidance for other parts of the school day will come in the next couple of weeks. Mental health support and counseling support, all of the staff we have available returns in the fall. So San Jose Unified is fortunate to have more school nurses per student than any district in the county. We have a lot of support counselors, academic counselors, social emotional counselors. All of that staff is returning. We will do our best to reposition them so they're quickly identifying needs and supporting students. Overarching, all of our employees are back with job security. We don't have the financial resources to add staff. So we have to implement next school year with the employees we have. The state also added requirements that we can't lay anyone off. So even if there's services we no longer provide, we have to find a way to reposition that employee because we're not allowed to lay off employees this school year. We need to work with the employees we have, and then for financial reasons, we're not able to add additional staff. Grading and attendance, all back to required. Students need to participate every day. There will be assignments, there will be grades, there will be transcripts. Our high school students need to know school is back in the fall. Whether you participate at home or participate in person, school is required. When you're participating at home, this goes back to what I said earlier about supporting our teachers. We're going to want all of our students at home to be full participants in the class. Ask questions, work with their peers. That's just going to be incredibly hard to implement. This meeting is harder than it would be if we're all in one room or we were all online. There's a mix. Our technology people are supporting. All of us are in here answering questions. Many of you are at home. Some of you are watching on YouTube. Some of you are in the Q&A. It's less than ideal, but we have to do our best to make sure everyone feels like they're involved and a participant. So when we get to the fall, if students are at home, we want them to feel like they're part of the class, not just observers. Specialty classes like band and choir, any aerosol producing activity is going to be restricted. Performing arts will have to be limited to activities that don't have students without their face mask producing particulate matter into the air. So all of those classes are going to have to fundamentally be different. Volunteering and adults on campus. We have fewer adults on campus at the high school level than the elementary level, but we did say on the elementary call, all adults will be restricted We won't have volunteers on campus every day. We won't have assemblies or rallies like we normally do. Large group interactions and adults coming on campus that change the stability of the group will all be restricted in the fall. Families will need to interact with their schools. We'll set that up on an appointment basis. So having the offices open to the public is extremely unlikely. Having the staff available on an appointment basis is the model we're going to finalize. Because again, we can't have large changes in the groups, which means we can't have volunteers coming in and out. At the high school level and the middle school level, will we switch classes? Yes. If you read the county health guidelines, they understand that high school students need to go to different classes because of the credentialing requirements and the graduation requirements and the course requirements. It is also logistically impossible. Our students do not take the same math class by grade level. They don't take the same foreign language by grade level. Student schedules are built based on where the students are at. If we try to keep the groups the same, we'd severely limit the courses kids could take. The county health department recognizes that. They know that students will be switching from classroom to classroom, and they'll be switching from group to group, which is why the face masks are so important. Students will need to wear their face masks while they're in school. For PPE, personal protective equipment, we have large numbers of face masks, cloth and disposable, hand sanitizer. We already have items on stock, but there'll be large deliveries before school starts in the fall. The state of California is providing supplies directly to us, and we've also ordered additional supplies. So we will have hand sanitizer, we will have masks. Basic supplies will be available for the first day of school and throughout the school year. Face masks are a requirement anywhere. So students will be expected to come to school and leave school with their own face mask. If a student doesn't have one, we will have a quantity to provide. But parents should know that wearing a face mask is to protect others. It's a general requirement, not a school requirement. Regarding discipline and the online environment, goes back to how much we're going to need to support our teachers. Students online, monitoring their behavior and managing it is going to be much more challenging than in person. So we will be able to mute phone lines, but we want to make sure that students continue their participation. We're going to have them behave appropriately. All of us in San Jose Unified have a lot of experience working with students. They are incredibly sophisticated, especially our high schoolers. We know that it'll be a challenge to keep the online environment respectful and appropriate at all times. As evidenced by these calls, we intentionally hide the Q&A from the public at large because not every participant is always behaving their best. We'll, just like I did this time, politely remind people to be professional. When our students are online, we're going to need them to behave like young adults that everyone will be proud of. Knowing that other people can see it online, hopefully reminds them to make the right decisions and take the right actions. But of course, an online environment is completely different than a classroom environment. Regarding students with special needs, IEPs and 504s, none of those requirements are changing. So if a student has an individual education plan or a 504, we need to provide those services. We may work with families to adjust those services through the IEP team meeting or the 504 meeting, because some of the services we may not be able to provide and still maintain the safety protocols. So we will work with families to make adjustments as we need to. Questions about lunch, other group activities, all of those are under the umbrella of it's going to be completely different. Groups need to stay as stable as possible. We will not be having lunch as a school in the cafeterias. We'll have to work on meal distribution and students eating where the group stays smaller. We understand that students will be outside. You know, they're going to arrive on campus and leave campus. We will do our best to add to our instruction the importance of social distancing, the importance of wearing your mask, the importance of washing your hands. But there's going to be times during the day where the school district isn't going to be able to completely control student behaviors. So we're going to set high expectations, provide the information the students need, and do our best to support them in making the right choices. The length of the school year, the length of the school day. The school year, the state has already made clear, needs to be 180 days. San Jose Unified has to offer 180 days under state law. The length of the day, the state has allowed for it to be a little bit shorter. This is our high school call. To offer a shorter day at the high school level means taking classes away, and we've already heard from many of our families that they don't want to lose classes, that they'd rather take them online than lose them. So when we did our survey before, overwhelmingly parents prioritize learning behind health and safety. We don't at this time have any plans to restrict courses students can take. Some of those courses, band, choir, PE, will be different, but we still want to provide students with as many course offerings as possible. So questions about rotating groups. A lot of school districts initially proposed models that had students attend school only 2 days a week and work on their own the other days. The state clearly went in a different direction. They expect live instruction every day, whether it's at home or in person. Without additional teachers, we can't provide a simultaneous in-person group and an at-home group. If the same teacher has to work with the group of students, they need to be able to do it in both environments simultaneously. We also talked to health professionals about the pros and cons of rotating students in and out. This virus has an incubation period of up to 5 days. If 100% of the students are on campus over the course of any 5 days, limiting the numbers doesn't add a health component, which is why the county guidelines don't make that recommendation. The county guidelines do not recommend restricting the number of students because there's not a health benefit if 100% of the students are seen by that teacher or visit that campus over any 5-day period. What does create health advantages are washing hands, face masks, and social distancing. So those are the things we're going to implement. Those are the county guidance. We did intentionally wait as a school district till the budget was finalized and the county health guidelines were finalized because we didn't want to have to change our plan. So we do have to offer live instruction. We do have to offer it for 180 days. And we now have a set of health guidelines that don't restrict the number of students. After school clubs, PE, all of that beyond school day experience. As I mentioned before, the county is going to issue additional guidelines for activities outside the classroom. We anticipate that they'll be significantly limited, but allowable. Recreational activities are already allowable now. Summer camps are allowable now. If schools are going to be open, we anticipate activities being open as well. They'll just be significantly restricted. So contact sports, unlikely to be the way we used to experience them. Regarding mask wearing and students refusing, our school system reflects our society at large. People who go to school are the same people who go out and about every day. The face mask debate is an intense one throughout California and the United States. I think county health is supporting us, and we do not want to discipline people for not wearing their mask at all times. We want to expect it, we want to encourage it, We want to require face masks, but we do not want to send students home because they took it off, especially our younger students. So we're going to go with a positive approach and encourage the right behaviors, train our staff and our students that face masks are to protect others. So when we wear our face masks, we're protecting others from getting the virus. We're not protecting ourselves. So we hope all of our students will appreciate that. They'll want to keep their friends safe. They'll want to keep their families safe, and they'll wear their face masks. So last broad question, and then we'll close things up. It's going to be incredibly challenging to implement the high school day and have it be completely safe. The county guidelines from the health department are how do we safely reopen schools and how do we make it safer. So as a school system, we're going to do protective equipment, symptom checking, and best practices, hand washing, masks, social distancing. As you've seen over the last few weeks, this virus is spreading in California and the schools are closed. So we know that the virus is going to spread whether the schools are open or not. The state has told us to open up our schools. County Health has given us guidelines on how to do that as safely as possible. That's what San Jose Unified is going to do over the next few weeks. If you as an individual parent feel like the best thing for your family is to keep your student at home, we're going to build a system that allows you to do that. And here are some of the next steps to help us get there.
So before we get into the next steps, I do want to recognize that this is a really complex problem and there's no perfect solution. Our perfect solution would be to be back to normal with our teachers in person and delivering instruction the way we have been trained to do so. Given the changing environment and the number of unknowns, we believe that this plan allows us to move seamlessly from being in person to at home if the health order requires. And so I do want to just ask for the community's patience as we get through this situation. But we are much better positioned to deal with this now than we were in March. And so you have our commitment that we are doing everything that we can to put in safeguards that will be required to make sure that learning continues in a safe fashion for not just our students, but our employees and our families. The next thing we will be doing is sending out a community survey, and we greatly appreciate your participation. We've had really high levels of participation in the surveys. In that survey, you will have an opportunity to indicate whether you are interested in keeping your child in distance learning. We know that that decision is not one that parents take lightly, and so you need to have as much information as possible to make an informed decision. Between now and when school starts, you can absolutely change your mind if there's still the health order that doesn't have requirements of limiting the number of seats. So we need that information simply so we can be aware of how we can plan accordingly, but there will be a process for formally notifying us of that. We're also simultaneously going to continue refining our reopening plans and continue to communicate with you on an ongoing basis. As soon as new information is available, we're going to try and get that to you as quickly as possible so that, again, you can use that to make the best decision for your family. As part of those reopening plans, we're going to develop a learning guide, much like the one we had in the spring, that will outline all of these questions that are particularly important at the high school level regarding attendance, grading, schedules. A lot of the questions that we weren't able to answer here will be found in that learning guide specific to teaching and learning. The second one will be an operational guide. That guide will outline how bus transportation will be done, arrival and departure procedures, cleaning procedures, recess, lunch schedules, after-school programs. All of those things need to have very clear rules and expectations, particularly for a district our size with 41 schools and many departments. Families have children at different levels, and so in normal times, rules and procedures vary from level to level, but during this emergency situation, we need to be as consistent as possible in order for our community members, our families, our students to be able to follow a common set of rules around how to keep everybody as safe as possible while we're in school. So those are the things that are coming. I want to assure you that we will be prepared to open schools on August 12th. And we miss our students, we miss our employees, we look forward to seeing them, whether it be in person or online. Know that we're going to work tirelessly, diligently, and collaboratively to make sure that that day, August 12th, is ready to go and that it be a successful opening of school. So with that, I want to thank you for your time again. I want you to have a great rest of your afternoon, and please have a great weekend.